Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. I'm Kristen Bomas, and joining me today is Ken Huff, a very dear friend of mine for over 25 years. And I'm glad you're here to join us on this conscious journey to enlightenment. So, Ken, what do you bring to the table tonight? What questions do you have?
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me be here.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to have you.
Spending some time with you and the puppies.
Yeah.
I have I tend to make my life more complicated than it needs to be.
Oh, you're not alone.
And one of the things that's been going through my mind recently is relationships and questions related to relationships.
Okay.
Both romantic and just personal friendships.
Okay, cool.
So my question to you is, at least the first question is, when you're in a relationship, whether it's romantic, like I said, or just a personal friendship, when do you realize, or when do you know if that relationship is ending? When things are going south? Or when does it become a balance between being comfortable and not wanting to get out of that relationship?
Right.
Or it's you still love that person, but there's other things that you're missing. So when do you know? When do you know that?
Oh gosh, it sounds like a simple question, doesn't it? And it's so not, because each person is going to have to balance some stuff. But what is simple about the answer is really looking at what needs to be balanced. And so let's do that. And I love that you did both romantic and friends, because I think too often everybody likes to focus on their romantic relationships, but some of the most powerful relationships in our lives are our friends. And so we want to also understand, as we change throughout life, when those are also changing, not with us, but away from us. So let me start with that concept, because I think it's the easiest piece to understand. In this life, if we look at the snake teaches us that it sheds its skin multiple times a year. We don't know how many times it's going to shed its skin, not a year, but in a lifetime. It could shed its skin once in a lifetime. It could shed its skin, 10 times in a lifetime. Who knows? But we're the same. As we grow, we shed our skin. And as we grow and shed skin, we don't know how many times we're going to do that or what that's going to look like. But it's going to give us a fresh new beginning, a fresh new start. And when we shed our skin, sometimes we shed relationships. And that is, what we shed. And so it is important to know, when we're going through those times in our life, what are we looking for and what is going to be the right move for each and every one of us at that time. And I'm sure, as you're watching us talk, you've been through the same question in your own life. There's so many relationships in our lives where we ask this question: do I stay or do I go? Do I tolerate? Do I settle? Or do I make a significant change? And a lot comes up inside when we ask those questions, right? That can be a fearful change for a lot of us. So when you're looking at friendships, I'm going to say what I see a lot are people holding on to friendships just because of the length of time they've been in them. The relationship is no longer a match, but because the length of time is there, they stay with them, as if it's not okay to leave just for that timeline. And yet, if we've been married for 40 or 50 years and we're no longer happy, we think it's okay to leave that relationship. So there's a question to ask yourself on the inside when it comes to both relationships. What is not working for you, right? What is it? Be clear what's not working for you. And that is a lot easier said than done. I think a lot of times, as we try to be clear with that, we get lost in everything else. Well, but they're good, and but this, and but that, and but, because it's really difficult to just narrow it down to just us, what we want, what we like, what we don't like. As you go through that, you're looking at what's working for you in the relationship and what's not working for you in the relationship. And that's where you shift your gears. And you ask yourself the most important question you could ask yourself, which is, what do I wish to experience in a friendship or a best friendship or a romantic relationship? That question I pose to you. Think about it inside your own self. What is the experience you wish to have in an ideal partnership and an ideal friendship and an ideal best friendship. Know what you want to have as the experience on the inside. Because once you know what you want to have on the inside, you're thinking about you, not the other person. So you may know that you want to feel love in particular ways, that you want to have particular growth patterns, you want to get rid of old patterns, you want someone who's willing to heal with you, you want someone who's willing to stand by your side when you're going through the tough times, and not just to stand there, but to be with you in an accepting and understanding way. And so you start to really put those experiences together. It's not an easy question, because it's not a question we normally ask. But if you can ask that question first in each of both your friendships and your romantic relationships, then all of a sudden you're listening to your own self. And that's what's most important, is to listen to your own self. And I'm going to come back to all of this. I'm just giving kind of an overview right now. We'll come back to all of this in a minute or two. But once we know that experience on the inside that we wish to have, we're going to make sure that our relationships fit into that space, that experience. And where it doesn't, we redefine it. So maybe a romantic relationship has become a best friendship. Maybe a friendship has become an acquaintance. But we just redefine the relationship. We move them into, like I like to say, a different circle, right? Instead of up close and personal, maybe they're a little bit more in an outer circle of friends. But we redefine it. We don't have to sever. We don't have to make grand decisions. We just quietly redefine it and see what really works for us. And I think what you'll find if you do that is, as you're redefining that relationship inside yourself, that other person is going to very comfortably shift, mold, morph into that new relationship with you without any major upheaval in anybody's life. A third thing that I'd like to say about that, all of the stuff I've said so far, is there are very few truths in this life. But one of them is that when you are true to your own integrity, you're always offering the greatest good out. And I'm going to say that again. I want you to hear this. When you are true to your own integrity, you are always offering the greatest good out. Why is that important? Because one of the things that causes such a challenge at this time of a decision like this is, oh, but it's going to hurt them. Oh, but what if it's not the right decision for them? And I'm not feeling good afterwards. And oh, and what if? And oh, what if? And most of that what if is including that other person. When we know the experience we wish to have, and we're staying inside ourselves, and our integrity is at a place where we're ready for the change. We're not doing it because he or she did this or that. We're doing it because we have changed. And what we need is no longer the same as what it was. And when we stay true to that integrity, and we know the experience we wish to have, and we make that shift, then it's not that it doesn't matter, but no matter what they react with, maybe hurt and sadness, maybe confusion, or what's wrong with me, or why now, or whatever, all of that is something they need to go through for greater growth. So when we try to avoid that in their life, that's our ego. And our ego is then trying to avoid the opportunity for them to have change. We don't think about it that way, but that's really what we're doing, right? By trying to be kind and nice and get it just right? We're stopping an opportunity for them to have a choice point in life. I don't know that it really ends up happening that way, because those choice points are always going to exist, but our ego is trying to do just that. So it is very important that we understand that basis of what goes on at those times, because they are critical times in our life. So with what I've said so far, what are you thinking? Any thoughts, any questions?
No, I believe what you said before. I haven't thought about it in a long time. Is your truth is your greatest communicator, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know that's the right way you want me to say it, but that's how I've looked at it in the past. But that being said, when it's focused on a romantic relationship, when the things that you want to experience are not happening, but they're not as great as the love you have for the person. So maybe it's 40%, 50, 40, 60%. Do you keep trying to make it work and make it this 30, 70, 20, 80?
You're such an accountant.
Yeah.
So the percentages become flexible. That's why you're going all over the place with them, because in a relationship, sometimes it is going to be 60-40 and sometimes it's going to be 40-60, right? So it's more important that you look inside yourself. When you get to that point of, I love him, I love her, I want to know what's happening. It's not happening in the way I wish it to. And I've said it. Then now I'm going to switch gears on you. The question is how you're communicating with your partner at that point. And that is very important. How we communicate is critically important. And I'm not going to get too far into this unless we have time for it at the end, but we've learned to communicate in this lifetime by telling other people about them. And so very often what we end up doing is we tell them what we need them to do, what we need them not to do. And so it's a constant going back to the doing, right? This is, you know, don't do this, do that, you know, I need you to whatever. And so we're talking to a behavior pattern that we want them to have or not have. 99% of the time, that's not going to work. Because a person is going to immediately gain a sense of defense when they are told what to do, right? So there's going to be a hesitation in some regard to making that change. So what you want to do then is say, okay, how are we going to do this? So I teach people to communicate by teaching only about themselves and then exploring their partner. So let me take a quick moment and talk to you while you're listening to Ken and I chat and let you know that we are launching a course called Clear the Clutter in Your Relationship, Learn to Communicate, and that course is going to be exactly what I'm going to address with Ken now. So just mark your calendars and it will be posted. So for you, what's going on inside? That's what you want to think of, right? Going back to what I said about the experience. And then you want to teach that to your partner, that this is why it hurts, this is how it feels, this is where it comes from in my life, right? I've had years of feeling a particular way, like maybe there's a movie scene that you can use as an example that helps you define that experience that you're having on the inside. Or maybe there's a song you can use that helps you let him or her know the experience you're having on the inside. But you want that piece to be well understood. What are you experiencing at this time, and what would you like to experience with them? I think too often what we don't say to our partner is, I miss you. Nothing after it, just, I miss you. I miss our talks. I miss our time alone home together, not at bars and with all the other guys. I miss our times quietly going to movies and dinners alone. I miss time. I miss you, right? And so it's important to kind of tap into not just what's not happening, but how you're feeling all the way down to the simplicity and the pure essence of what's driving the unhappiness, discomfort, whatever. As you relate that to your partner, you want your partner's feedback as well. Okay, because now your partner is doing something that isn't particularly comfortable for you. And if that's not comfortable for you, then you want to get curious, right? You want to explore your partner. And so as you explore your partner, you're going to ask him, okay, what's going on inside you that you do that, right? And you do it with compassion, not judgment. Teach me why you like to do X, Y, or Z, whatever it is that isn't a match, right? So now you've taught about yourself, and now you're going to turn around and explore with compassion and love, genuinely wanting to learn what it's all about for him, and let him teach you what that's about for you, right? Don't worry if it's different. Worry about nothing. Be open only to what is being taught to you. Who is this person sitting in front of me? I want more of him. I want to learn more about him. I want to be able to embrace him in the same way I want him to embrace me, right? And we can't get to that point if we're too busy telling him how to behave, right? So you want to open up those doors for yourself and then for your partner. And as we open those doors, we open the relationship. And as we open the relationship, we grow. And as we grow, our love is now much more invested in the relationship than it was when you were worried about what things were happening, what things weren't happening. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
It's really important to remember to teach only about yourself, because we've learned to tell others about them. And the more you learn to teach, it's a very simple concept, but not easy. And it's not easy because it's not how we learn to speak, right? And so our natural way of going at it is to tell the other person. But it's as simple as saying, I, and never saying you, which is not simple. I mean, it's not easy. If I can put a whole sentence together and never say you and only say I, me, right? Then all of a sudden, I'm sure-footed that I'm teaching about my own self. If I say, I feel you're being obnoxious, that's not a feeling. That's not about me. That's my opinion. That's my judgment. But that's not helping anything. So what if I think you're obnoxious? That's ridiculous. If I look at you and I say, I feel hurt, and I feel really put off, and I don't know if that's what you intended. Now, I'm teaching you how I feel, and I'm asking you if that's what you intended, right? I'm not judging you. So first of all, we bring the love back into the relationship by removing the judgment, and we open up who we are by teaching how we're feeling, and we look at the other person by asking them what their intention was. We can do that with any behavior. I use a goofy comment because you want to definitely differentiate between feelings and thoughts. And it is important because most of the time your thoughts are not your feelings and they're not necessarily teaching about you. It's a very important piece of your puzzle. But that's where I would start in a situation like that. It's breaking down the communication again, coming back down and finding out where you're not clearly, not just teaching about yourself, because you might be doing a really good job saying this is how I feel inside, but are you taking the next most important step, which is exploring your partner and why it happens, so that you can find that middle, that ground where you match, where you connect on who you each are, right? Socrates did a beautiful job, this is what cut him in jail, but did a beautiful job of teaching people how to dialogue down to a truth. So you and I would start a conversation. We could be on absolute opposite sides of a spectrum. And as we spoke and spoke and spoke, and he would teach you how to do this dialogue, we would talk in a way, dialogue in a way that got us to that place of truth where there is no dichotomy. Now imagine you can do that in your relationship. And that is what happens if you truly embrace the idea of teaching about yourself and exploring your partner. Because there will be no arguments. Right? As soon as there's a difference of thought or opinion or behavior, you're going to ask questions. And you're going to be curious. And in your curiosity and exploration, why argue? You're too busy trying to find out the truth of what's happening in each of you to go any further than that. So it's a beautiful place to go. Okay. Any thoughts?
A question follow-up
related
to that, but it's a different question.
That's okay.
What if the person... I'm going to focus on the romantic side.
Okay.
If the person that you're romantically involved with was raised or brought up differently than you. So, say you were told, I love you daily by your parents, right? Mm-hmm. That person didn't have that same upbringing.
Yes.
So, you're used to having that verbiage, right? That person doesn't give it because he didn't have it and it's not used to it. It's not that he or she didn't love you.
Yeah.
It's just that they're not used to saying it, whereas you're used to receiving it. And that kind of goes with what you're saying, that there's the communication is a little bit different, right, between the two because they learn differently or were brought up differently than you. Is there a way to bridge that gap?
Absolutely there is. Because they learned a habit. Their habit is not to say I love you on a regular basis. You learned a habit. Your habit is to say I love you on a regular basis. As you start to ask about what that's like for each person. What's it like to hear I love you? What's it like to say I love you? You open up doors. Now, we can make a couple guesses. Someone who grows up without ever hearing I love you may have a very different way of looking at intimacy. In fact, they may be very frightened of intimacy, and it may be very uncomfortable for them, and so they don't know how to break it. So now together as a team, you work on helping them feel okay with saying I love you. I don't know if you remember the first time you said I love you in your life. Do you remember that?
I do not. To a parent, probably. Yeah.
Okay. Remember it felt awkward? And that awkwardness is because it's new, and it's coming from deep inside, and it's intimate, and it's awkward, and it feels funny, right? Well, that's what your partner is going to feel if this is new for him, right? So to explore that together is an intimate gesture in and of itself, right? So even by exploring the very piece of saying I love you, you're going right at the awkwardness of feeling the intimacy and opening up and feeling that vulnerability to a place of exploration without making it so blessed uncomfortable. So you're really opening so many doors just by stepping on it. But yes, you can have people who grow up from completely opposing religions, completely opposing views in life. As long as your values find a middle ground, you can build upon anything, because that diversity is the beauty of life, right? That's what really opens things up. And it doesn't matter if it's saying I love you and not that I love you, or whatever it is. It's the diversity of how you came up and what you experienced in this life. And learning to genuinely embrace and accept and love the very difference in your partner is the most critical part of a love relationship. Because if you can't do that, you'll never know love. All you'll do is keep interrupting it with your fear of the difference. Right?
Yes.
And where there is love, there is an absence of fear. And where there is fear, there is an absence of love. So that fear of he's different, she's different, interrupts the love of embracing that diversity and that difference. Make sense?
Yeah, I definitely understand.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I mean, I appreciate what you said. They were great.
Okay. Let me wrap up then.
Okay.
Let me pull some pieces together for everybody. So we've been talking about relationships, both friendships and romantic. And at the very beginning, I kept it very general. I think it's really important to understand that in all of our relationships, we're going to make changes in our own life. And it's up to us to know the experience that we wish to have in each of those relationships as we grow, right? What is it that I wish to experience in a partnership, a romantic partnership, and in a best friendship and in a friendship? What is the experience I wish to have? Then when we bring that person into that place in our life and we call them friend, best friend, partner, we're looking at creating the very experience we wish to have. Not the expectation, the experience that we wish to have. Once we know that if we change and we change away from wanting that relationship any longer because it's no longer matching the experience we wish to have, we know that if we're being true to our integrity, when we make changes in that relationship and we redefine it, that we're offering the greatest good to the person in front of us. Always. That's just a truth in life. As we looked at those differences, we focused in on the experience that you wish to have and really starting all relationships from that point of reference and making sure that as you move through your relationships that you're always looking from the inside out. As we focused more and more in on relationships, even in general, and how we communicate, the differences in what one person does versus what another person does, how it makes each of you feel when there is a difference. We looked at how you can communicate, how you can teach about yourself and explore the other person. And that as you learn to teach and explore in your communication, rather than telling them what you think of them or what to do or what you need them to do or what you need from them in order for you to feel whatever, all of a sudden, communication opens doors rather than closing doors. And as we open those doors, we open the relationship. And so learning to communicate, and again, I will restate that we have a course opening at the end of March of 2025 that will be addressing this very thing. So stay tuned. And then after we looked at communication, we looked at, well, what if the differences are from our upbringing? And we just have some, core differences in the way we see things. Well, core differences aren't necessarily in the way we see things. They're much more about habits that were learned and how how we learned, basically, right? They were different. And when we start to learn about one another and teach and explore and be in the love of the relationship, then those differences become that grist for the mill of greater connection and love and oneness, because unity is built on the diversity between the two of you. So it is important, again, to always know you. So as you build a relationship, that relationship always starts with you. You are the first person in that relationship. So know yourself, know how you feel, know what you wish to experience, and invite that other person into that experience with you in the way you wish to experience it. And be ready to be clear. And in a romantic relationship, no, you'll be learning about yourself forever. So your partner needs to be learning about you forever. Your partner will be learning about himself forever. So you need to be learning about him forever. And that's how we keep a romantic relationship alive forever. Got it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us as Ken and I talked about relationships. And I really hope that you're able to find the greatest love in your own life for yourself, for your partner, and for your friends. And until next time, may the magic be yours. Thank you so much for joining me. And please visit KristenBomas.com, where you can easily access all of my social circles.